my job is pretty straightforward. It's not to police people's feelings about the story. It's just to, to tell it and to get as much access and information as I can to be able to do that in the fullest way possible. And the rest of it's gravy.
Hello, and welcome to The Conversation. I'm Dasha Burns, Politico's White House bureau chief, and every week on this show, I invite one of the most compelling power players in Washington and beyond in for a chat to find out how they're navigating and shaping this incredible era of American politics. This week, I caught up with someone I see at the White House all the time, and you probably do too, Fox News senior White House correspondent Jacqui Heinrich. We talk about the difference between covering the Biden administration versus the Trump administration, her role on the White House Correspondents Association, the relationship between the Pentagon and the press as Secretary Hegseth tries to impose new restrictions on reporters there, plus her new show on Fox News, The Sunday Briefing. Here's my conversation with Jacqui Heinrich. Jacqui Heinrich, my friend, my fellow White House reporter, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to quickly talk about Air Force One because I had my first experience on it this week. I got very familiar with it. I think I was on that airplane for like 24 hours over the course of just about 3 days. It is just such a wild experience. I mean, that plane holds so much history. It also feels like it's fully out of the 1980s. Like I feel like I'm in a time machine
Yes.
when I'm on it. Like, what has your experience been like of flying on that historic plane?
Well, so I haven't flown it with Trump yet. I'm very excited for that because when I flew, it was with Biden. I also flew on Air Force Two with Harris. And when I was on it with Biden, he did not come back and talk to the press. I think he only did that one time in his entire administration. And with Harris, she did come back, but it was like all off the record. And it was basically like stuff we couldn't use.
I'll say it's a totally different vibe. And like the first time he gaggled on this trip was like right after takeoff, maybe 10 or 20 minutes in. And then he came a second time, which we didn't think was going to happen because everyone was like fully exhausted after like 30 hours of travel already. And he came back. We were taxiing. For those who haven't been on Air Force One, like the normal commercial airplane rules just fully do not apply. Like at one point, I'll do a little TMI. Like I was in the bathroom when the plane landed. I was like, wait, what is happening? I was like holding onto all of the walls. Karoline Leavitt comes back. She says, he's about to gaggle. None of us were prepared because we were like literally about to take off. So we're taxiing. So the plane is like jostling. The camera guys are like falling over themselves. And the president is just, chatting away.
It's a very neat experience. And it's, the one downside, you did an international flight. So mine was not international, but the press seats don't recline. And I think like everyone who has, flown commercially for the same trip, like you show up rested and ready to go. Have you rested yet?
Girl, no. I am very rough around the edges. So apologies to you and to our listeners. But I'm glad we're here. We're here together. You know what it's like. So thank you for your
of course.
Moral support. Let's talk about you though, because you've just been a rising star at Fox News, but you've also been somebody that, really probes and pushes folks on both sides of the aisle, including President Trump and those in this administration. And I wonder what the experience has been like for you, having this big platform and this stage, but also, eliciting some of that criticism from the top, from the president on Truth Social.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't really give it much time or space in my head. When he swiped at me, my first question was like, what is he mad about? Like, what was it that upset him? Because I put so much of my effort into really being scrupulous with the facts and the details and making sure that everything is in context, that there's nuance, that the story is told fairly and fully. I think that as long as I've done that, I've done my job, and people's feelings about it are not really my business. If there's nothing that anyone can point to be like, you missed this, or you didn't ask about this thing, then it's not something I want to spend my time thinking about. I got stuff from the Biden press shop too. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think, I think we all experience this, especially in this administration, but you covered the previous one too. And I want to kind of talk about the differences there. I think for me, it's interesting to see kind of the rage from both sides, sort of no matter what you do. And I think you're right that you have to just make sure that you have your facts straight. And as long as you do that, that's the North Star, right?
Yeah, my job is pretty straightforward. It's not to police people's feelings about the story. It's just to tell it and to get as much access and information as I can to be able to do that in the fullest way possible. And the rest of it's gravy. I do, though, notice when there are people who follow me cross-platform to track me down and let me know multiple times a day on different apps the same message. I'm like, oh, you care a lot
and have a lot of time and have a lot of time.
Yeah.
I do wonder though what has been the difference, and I know it's probably massive, but I'm curious some of the details of how different it has been covering the Trump administration versus the Biden administration.
Well, I think the biggest difference is just the level of access.
Right.
I mean, you get to talk to the president multiple times a day sometimes. And that is not the experience we had with Biden. I didn't get a meeting with Karine Jean-Pierre for I stopped asking after a while because I was she would not meet with me. She would not talk to me.
Do you think that was with everybody, or was it specifically because you were a Fox?
She just didn't want to talk to anyone who was going to ask her a tough question. I think sometimes that she didn't actually like doing her job. And I think on the Trump side of things, you get a lot. They're putting out the president's message, and that is their job. And they sometimes do that forcefully, but you're getting it. So I think there's a level of sometimes combativeness that people on the outside looking in would be like, oh, it must be so much harder covering Trump in the White House. And actually.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of the inner workings of the White House press corps, because you are on the board of the White House Correspondents Association. You actually got elected president for two terms from now?
It'll be the 27 to 28 year, so going into the election year.
Well, congratulations. But you are part of an organization that is often in conflict with this administration. What has it been like navigating that?
Well, I would say have been in conflict before, but it's not the aim of the organization to be in conflict. I think our job is to advocate and to facilitate, and when necessary, to use our voice and, to speak up for whatever needs to be said. But our primary job is, not activism. It is advocacy. And there's a difference there.
For people that don't understand what this organization is and that have seen it kind of become politicized, what is the job, the goal, the mission of the White House Correspondents Association?
So the White House Correspondents Association is basically a group of 9 people that are elected by our peers. And there's a print person, there's a TV person, there's a radio person, there are at-large members, and we represent the organizations that are part of our membership. We have 900 plus members. And so our job is to facilitate coverage of the White House on behalf of our members. And we had historically controlled the pool as well, which is basically, it would be impractical to have all 200 people on site at the White House on any given day go into the Oval Office. So the pool is a rotating group of, 21 or so who basically gather material that is then shared among all of the people who cover the White House, and they're asking questions on behalf of the pool. So the day that you are serving in the pool, you're not asking questions for Fox, you're asking questions for everybody.
And I'll say on the print side, having just done this, it's the same way, Politico was the print pooler on this trip to the Middle East. I sent out some 43 pool notes, but I'm not doing that for Politico. I'm doing that. My pool notes are going to many people on a list to to give the details of what the president says, what his movements are when Air Force One touches down or goes wheels up. And that's also preserved for the historical record.
Yes, for the historical record. And it's to facilitate basically anyone who's not in the room or on the trip to cover it as if they are. The basic function of the WHCA is to facilitate access on behalf of our members, to facilitate that coverage, to make things go smoothly, and then also to advocate and, when necessary, to speak up on behalf of our members. We've had some issues with the Trump administration. They have taken over the pooling. So historically, the WHCA has organized the pool rotation. The White House now controls that.
Why does that matter? How does that impact things?
The reason that we had done it the way we had done it is because it gives an equal opportunity to basically everyone covering the White House in their rotation. And also that, no one is locked out. You're not out of the pool just because the president doesn't like you. And so when they took control over the pooling, they made some changes. Basically, what they did was they eliminated the wire rotation. So there was a rotation specifically for the wires. That's all a continuing, legal battle there. But our job as, advocates for our members was to explain and to say, here are the reasons why this, has been like this in the past. And I think it's been politicized in a sense because, I see this from multiple angles, taking my WHCA hat off and putting my, personal hat on. I can understand why the president or the administration would sometimes feel like the coverage has been unfair. I think that, he has received a lot of negative coverage comparatively. And you look at how the media has treated coverage of his administration often versus, Biden's. But at the same time, I don't think that is a reason to kick anyone out. I also think that they are some of the most capable communicators and, articulate the administration's policy and defend it in a talented way. I kind of don't understand why they would want to shy away from coverage.
To me, it's interesting because, watching Karoline do, she's had some of those influencer briefings, right, where it's mostly right-leaning conservative reporters in the briefing room, and she's not as sharp as she is when she's getting that pushback. There's a different energy from her when she's in the briefing room with all of the reporters with different perspectives who are peppering her with very different questions than when it's a kind of a compliment fest, right, for the White House.
I will also say that I don't have a problem with the new media seat. I actually think it's great. I think that as long as you're not taking away spaces for, traditional journalists and news outlets, then do whatever you want. And by the way, the Biden folks did this too. They had influencers in as well. They gave influencer briefings. But the new media seat, I thought that was a very creative solution to give up a staff seat that wasn't really necessary. No one regularly sat there. It wasn't assigned and certainly wasn't used in a consistent way. And I think it was really smart of them to, show the public that they understand the evolving media landscape, that people get their information from different spaces, and that they want to tap into that. People can tell the difference between information coming to you from an influencer versus information coming to you from a journalist, largely. I hope at least. But, the point of the WHCA is basically to work in service of the First Amendment. I think that we can do that best and most fully when there's not a combative relationship with the administration in terms of our role. And yes, of course, we will put out statements that are defending our principles when necessary. But how I've approached that is look, if we have to put out a public statement, it should come as no surprise what we're going to say, because we should have been talking about this and advocating and having those, detailed discussions behind closed doors and in private for the whole lead up.
What is your message to the White House about what the White House Correspondents Association wants to see from this administration in terms of access and treatment of reporters?
We want to make sure that reporters get to continue to do their jobs unfettered. It's that simple.
The White House Correspondents Association recently joined forces with the Pentagon Press Association to push back on restrictions for reporters. Walk me through what happened there.
Well, the Pentagon's policy, and, I think that they can speak to the details of it better than we can. We've, in solidarity with them, affirmed, that we should not be curtailing access to information. It doesn't serve the public to do that. I think there's been some misreporting out there. I mean, just now the president was talking to the press and there was a question about this new press restriction, and he punted to Pete Hegseth to answer, and he answered it in such a way that, it sounds fine. It sounds like, oh, of course, we don't want reporters walking around without badges on and into, areas where they could get classified information that endangers national security. That sounds fine. The problem is that's not what was happening. Every journalist in the Pentagon has to wear a badge. Journalists were not allowed into classified spaces. That's not the reality of what's been happening. And in fact, they have stopped holding briefings. And unlike the White House, where we do have great access to officials and we do have great access to the principal, the president, that's not the case over at the Pentagon. And some of the restrictions were written in a way that would have curtailed, the job that we do under the First Amendment. And so that, the statement from the Pentagon Press Association and the WHCA is that, we defend the public's right to information and we want to continue to pursue it.
We talked about the new media seat at the White House, which I agree. Like, I think things have changed. Like, we can't pretend that, the media landscape is the same as it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago even. And within all of that, you are doing something new. You launched a show called The Sunday Briefing. What are you trying to do with that program?
Well, I think we are committed to trying new things and just sort of trying to break the mold and see where things take us. We are aware that there is a different media landscape that people are existing in. They get their information from different places. We want to cross-pollinate those audiences, maybe bring someone on to the show that you see mostly on the internet. Peter Ducey, my co-host, had Comfortably Smug on for his panel a couple of weeks ago. So that's interesting. Or talking about a story that's been traveling on the internet and bringing that to TV. I think just sort of trying to be nimble. Now, not to say that we won't have shows that are exactly like that. I just did this past weekend where, I had an interview with Zelensky. Like, what else are you going to do? The continuing thread through all of this is that we are covering the news and we're trying to cover it in, a fresh way and just see where that takes us.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask, you're getting married soon. Congratulations.
Thank
you. You fell in love with a congressman, Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania. That feels like something that would be in like an HBO miniseries about reporters. How did that happen for you, and how are you guys doing?
We're good. We're getting married in the spring. And yeah, I met him when I was covering Capitol Hill. I left Capitol Hill and started covering the White House in 2021. And I'd been covering the White House for like 5 months. And he asked me to go with him to the Kennedy Center honors. I had only really seen him in group settings. Like, we'd have dinners with other members, and it was always about reporting. It was always about work. And so when he asked me to be his guest to the Kennedy Center honors, I was like, oh, that sounds like a date.
And he was like, yes.
He's like, yes, I'm asking you on a date. And I was like, oh, you are? I was like, I got to ask my bosses. Like, I don't even know if that's something they would let me do. Like, I got to really think about it. And so I asked, and they were like, well, do you want to go? And I'm like, maybe? Like, I don't know. And they're like, well, you don't cover Congress. There's no problem with that. And I didn't. I'd been covering the White House for 5 months.
Jacqui, so romantic, going through all the proper channels before saying yes to this date.
I know. And like, imagining Brian being like, okay, I'm like waiting on this girl to like,
check all the boxes. Yeah.
He was incredibly patient. We dated for, it'll be 4 years this month, actually.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thanks. But yeah, things are great, and he's wonderful, and we've had so much support, and it's exciting.
Well, in this crazy time, you've got a show, you're reporting on the White House, and you've got a wedding coming up. So, thank you for taking time out of your crazy schedule to come on and chat with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been The Conversation with Dasha Burns. We'll be back next week. And if you want to catch future episodes of The Conversation, make sure to click that subscribe button below. Thanks for watching.